Hi everybody. I've come up to the end of my micro teaching skills, okay? This is the last part of the discussion, and this is, as it is the closure part, okay? So here comes the skill of achieving closure. Now, you see, when a teacher intends to take up a class, then there will always be a end to that particular class. So in a way, we can understand that a teacher has intended to close down the day's lesson and informs the learner that in the next class, the teacher will come up with a specific lesson. So the teacher may announce the lesson or ask the pupil to come prepared with the lessons. Okay, this is one way. And the second way is that a teacher, having discussed the day's lesson, what the teacher does is the teacher needs to keep some time. Okay, this is very important. Listen very carefully. The teacher needs to keep at least 5 minutes time wherein the teacher can brief out what the teacher has discussed, or otherwise the teacher can clean up the board and then ask certain questions relating to the day's lesson. This is a way to see how far the student has understood. Okay, so then the next thing the teacher can do is the teacher can state that as it is, today I'm closing down the day's lesson. What I have discussed was on this, the purposes and object, whatever the teacher has discussed. And then the teacher states that as for your home assignment, learn this part of the lesson or complete this question. So in this way, the teacher can end up the day's lesson. This is a way to encourage the pupil for further learning. Is that clear? If a teacher applies this particular technique, then it can be assumed that the teacher has developed the skill of closure. Okay, so in this way we understand that this particular skill of achieving closure is also very important. So let us further see. Okay, let us see. Okay, now here we see that, as I have already stated, that we as a teacher, we need to keep some specific time, okay, like 5 minutes or 4 minutes of the total class being allotted to the teacher. So that time should be sufficient enough for the teacher to make certain bit of revision of the points that has been covered in the day's lesson. Clear? Then the next thing is that developing the cognitive whole of their learning. So it is like, as I said, the teacher can raise certain questions or ask the students to say on certain things that the teacher has already discussed, or the teacher can ask them to say that what are the principles that I have discussed. So in this way, the students can volunteer themselves and say. So this is a technique for arousing the attention level of the pupil, or making them still alert till the end of the session, in a way that they will also be prepared for the upcoming lessons, the next class, okay, with that particular teacher. So it develops the cognitive whole of their learning. The next is it helps in recollecting the teaching points. This is understood, isn't it? So definitely whatever the teacher has taught, once the teacher gives a sum up and tries to take the feedback from the learner, then it helps the learner to reflect on the teaching points that has been discussed by the teacher. Clear? So coming to the components part. Now in this case, revision of the points. The first component, as it has been listed out here, it is revision of the points taught. That's the first. And the second is developing the cognitive whole of their learning, as I have already stated. The next is recollecting the teaching points. It helps recollect the teaching points. The next is recapitulating the questions. Okay, so it is like a recap of what I have taught. That if I place a question, if the student is able to respond it, then it is understood that they are able to recollect, they are able to remember, or it has been sustained in their memory. And the next is giving them home assignment. Clear? So these are the components of achieving closure. Now, earlier when we talked about the format of a micro teaching plan in the beginning, this was the format. This I'm just trying to show you so that you will be aware how a micro lesson plan can be prepared. In this case, as I stated in the beginning of my lesson, micro teaching implies one skill at one time, like the skill of introducing a lesson and so on and so forth. So each lesson is being listed for a particular teaching point, okay, teaching skill. In this case, the skill of questioning has been written. Clear? So here you have the date, the class in one side. The next is specific objectives. Like, for example, what is the specific objective for the day's lesson? It is to help students acquire proper understanding about the cherry tree. It is an English portion. So the topic on cherry tree the teacher intends to take. So that's the specific objective. So the subject is English prose. The topic is the cherry tree. And the teaching aids, the general teaching aid is the blackboard or the whiteboard, marker or duster. Marker or chalk, then duster. That's the general teaching aid you have. And the specific could be the word chart or the chart, the model or anything. So, and what skill you are focusing, that is the skill of questioning. Clear? The next part is you have to divide it into these ways, wherein you have to mention the content, one part, the teaching points, teacher's activity, student's activity, and the components of teaching skills. Now, which teaching skill we are using? We are using the questioning part, okay? So, in this case, as it has been stated here, the cherry tree, okay? So, here, the content decided is what? It is the cherry tree. What will be the teaching point? It about the author, and the 2 points that is the next is familiar with the cherry tree. So these are the 2 teaching points that has been listed. So the teacher's activity here will be, teacher will ask a question by saying, in which class did you read about Rusk and Bone? So in this way, the teacher can place certain questions, and the expected student's activity will be When the teacher asks this question, the students will give probable answer. So this way you have the students activity, and here the components like prompting can be provided. Okay, so this is how micro lesson plan was prepared before. Okay, as of now the pattern has differed a little. It has differed a little, and our affiliating university is following this particular pattern. This is the earlier pattern. Okay, so this is the present pattern of our affiliating university. So you all are to prepare this way. Clear? So here you mentioned whichever skill you are intending to take. As of now, the skill of questioning is in focused. In one side you mentioned the subject, the class, the name of the trainee. Okay, then the unit you have and the subunit. Clear? And on the other side you mentioned the date, the duration of the time, and the number of students. As because it is micro teaching, if you remember, the time should be reduced. So 5 to 10 minutes. So the stipulated time taken is 7 to 8 minutes. So this is how it has been divided. You have the units and subunits here. Then you have the brief summary given here, and you have the component of skill here this side, and you have the procedure details here. As for example, the unit on the Beauty and the Beast has been taken up. The author you mention here, and a brief summary of that particular prose piece, the Beauty and the Beast. It has been written, and the component, whichever component it has been reflecting, you have to mention it here, and the procedure detail. Like take for example, for linking with specific objects, say just a minute here, for, can you see this? For linking with specific objectives, the teacher will ask questions like, what present did the merchant's daughter ask from him? Okay, so in this way the procedural detail can be provided by the respective student teachers, the trainees. Okay, so this is the format. You can take a screenshot. Can I proceed? You just have to be clear. So how many teaching points you want to cover, that entirely depends upon you. Either 4 points, 5 points. So that will depend upon the time taken. Within 7 to 8 minutes, or within 5 to 10 minutes, how many units you can cover. So it will depend upon that. Okay. So that's how. Then in continuation, this is the second part. Okay, this is the first, and this is the second. The subunit has been taken. Here the unit has been focused in this case, and here the subunit. So again the same way, you have the unit, subunits, brief summary, same. Okay, so under this part you're mentioning the same way, you're giving the brief summary, you have given the component and the procedure detail. So since I'm using the PowerPoint, I'm projecting it through this way, therefore it's taking 2 pages. As of in the practical situation, it might be in the same page itself. In the same page itself. Wait just a minute. Here in the same page itself, probably you have written here, and this much space it has taken, and you can give the here another subunit, and same way the brief summary will be written here, components will be written here, the procedure details will be written here. Clear? So in the same page it can be covered. Okay, don't get confused. So this is how this skill has been touched. So coming to the next is the skill of reinforcement. It is in the same way for the day's teaching. The skill of reinforcement has been focused. As it is, micro teaching is one skill at one time. I am repeating it once again. So having done with one teaching skill, having mastered with one teaching skill, the next skill is coming into focus. So you have to focus after mastering one skill at one time. So similarly, the prose piece, this way you have to write. The same unit has been taken, the Beauty and the Beast, the same thing, but it is in the reinforcement skill now. Okay, the previously it was a questioning skill, and now the skill of reinforcement. So in this case, in the first part, the same way you have given the brief summary of this component. Which component are you touching? The positive and the negative reinforcement. What about the procedure detail? Here the teacher will ask, where and with whom did the merchant live? Students, there is a probable response that student will provide. The merchant lived in a mansion with his daughter. It may be positive or it may be negative reinforcement. If the student has responded wrongly, accordingly reinforcement needs to be provided. Clear? So this is how you have to place, okay, how you have to write the micro teaching plan. Okay, clear? So in the same way, as I said, it might cover in one sheet of piece of paper. So as of now, like supposing you have this is the subunit portion, and again another unit, probably you want to write it here again, another point. Okay, under this unit, wait just a minute. Okay, under this specific unit only, supposing you have written another brief summary, here will be the reinforcement part, okay, and here will be the procedure detail. So in this way you have to mention, okay, you have to mention it this way. So this is the format that you have to follow. Clear? This is the format you need to follow. I hope it is clear. I'm showing you once again. You can take a screenshot. I'm repeating it once again. This is since I'm using in the slide form, therefore it's taking 2 pages. Okay, as it is this, if I would have written in a piece of paper, I think I could have covered in this portion itself. Okay, this side itself, like this way. Clear? So let's switch to the next part. That is, if you remember, feedback needs to be provided. Feedback is important. Without feedback, you will not understand that how far you have improved your skills. So feedback sheet needs to be prepared. So let us have a look. Now, feedback, it provides some information about the trainee, isn't it? It supplies the information about the trainee, how far the trainee has develop the skill, the weak the areas that needs to be improved can be sharpened by pointing out that this is not the way you have to do it in this way. So having shown the weakness in the teaching, it can be developed, so they can improve themselves. Okay, they can improve themselves. So the success of micro teaching depends on the feedback, and this is well understood. So feedback, who's supposed to give? It is the supervisor or the observer. And feedbacks, you can also adopt the recording system. You can use some instrument for recording your teaching, and thereby you yourself can see how far you have done. Okay, so accordingly you can bring about certain bit of modification, and even recording would help to check the pace of your teaching. Okay, how slowly you're developing the skill, or how fast you have developed the skill. So that's very important for you to improve. Okay, that's important, like for record keeping, so that can be done. So let us see the feedback format. So this is the feedback format. Okay, this is the feedback format for the skill of introducing the lesson. So you have the here the rating, which way you have to mention it as excellent, very good, good, average, below average, poor, very poor. So in this side you mention the components and ask the observer to put a tick mark, or the students who are observing, ask them to put a tick mark wherever it is applicable. Clear? Supposing securing like with regard to this particular introducing the lesson, it is not up to the mark. Okay, it is not up to the mark, so you can give a tick mark this side. Okay, you can place a tick mark this side, like that. So supposing linking with no, it's very poor, so this way you can provide a tick mark depending upon the performance of the training. Clear? So this is with regard to the introduction. The next is the skill of questioning. See, it's the same way. This side is the components. Components relating to this particular skill, remember. Components are not same. Components will differ relating to that particular skill. So this is the questioning part. This is for the use of teaching aids. Clear? You have the components this side. Then again, this is for the reinforcement part. Similarly, you have the components this side, the grading part this side, whichever you feel. If the teacher writes pupils' responses, then you put a tick mark. Okay, so it depends upon the observer's view about the trainee. So this is the skill of illustration. You have the components. So that's all for the. So I've given you 5 core components. Okay, the 5 core components, and the relating to 5 basic teaching skills which the university has approved. Clear? So this is all about, see, this is introducing the lesson 1. This is questioning 2. This is use of teaching aids 3. This is skill of reinforcement 4. And this is skill of illustration 5. So these are the 5 teaching skills which you are supposed to cover. Okay, because we are focusing on micro teaching with simulation. I shall cover this portion in my upcoming classes. Okay, so you just have a look at this. So what did you understand by whatever I've done? What do you think micro teaching is? Obviously, you have learned something, isn't it so? Well, let us briefly sum up that micro teaching, it focuses on sharpening and developing the specific skills in teaching. Remember this, okay? It helps in sharpening and developing the specific skills, the teaching skills in the learner, and it tries to do away, or you can say it tries to eliminate the errors or the unrequired or undesirable teaching procedure or techniques that has been adopted by the trainee, whichever the trainee adopts. Okay, so eliminating those unwanted and sharpening those that are desirable. The next is it enables understanding of behavior that is important for the classroom teaching. So whichever behavior or attitude or responses required for making the teaching more student oriented and friendly, that the teacher needs to adopt those particular skills. In this way, the trainee will understand that if the trainee adopts this particular technique, the student will be able to understand, or a rapport can be built up among the students, with the students. Okay, the next is it increases confidence in the learner. Obviously, once your skills have been sharpened, it has been molded, then definitely confidence will be built up. And it is regarded as a vehicle of continuous training. As I said, micro teaching is meant for the in-service and the pre-service teachers. So it is both for the beginners and the teachers who are already in service. Clear? So it is very much desirable for them, because micro teaching aims in refining the skills in teaching. And here it provides expertise, supervision and constructive feedback. So feedbacks are being given in a way to bring about improvement. It is not to criticize the trainee, but in order to bring about desirable improvement in the trainees. And for this, the observer themselves needs to be a trained observer, so as to give a constructive feedback. Clear? So I hope it is clear. Okay, so that's all for today, and I wish you all the good luck. Be sincere with your work. It is not that these are not something that you have to mug up. Okay, it's not something you have to by heart it. You have to practically use it, and you have to polish yourself, refine yourself, and it once you develop the skill, it will come up automatically. It's not that you have to remember that I have to use this particular skill, introducing, I have to use the writing board, I have to make use of the stimulus variation. No, this, in the beginning you'll have some issues, you might have some problem, but once you develop the skill, it will come up automatically. Clear? So we have seen what micro teaching is. We have also understood the main purpose of micro teaching, isn't it so? And we have also seen the different type of skills that are desirable for a teacher. And as a whole, micro teaching, when we talk about micro teaching, the main aim of micro teaching is to be specialized in each skill. Okay, so therefore one skill at one time is the criteria that is being followed in the micro teaching. When one skill is being developed, when one skill has been mastered, then it has been switched to the other skill. In this way, the trainee develops all the skills. Okay, the trainee will get a chance to develop all the skills, and feedback, it is through the feedback mechanism that one can develop and understand the weakness and sharpen the desirable behavior or the skills. And we need to follow the cyclic process, that is, you prepare the lesson, you teach, okay, you get the feedback, clear, and then you replan the lesson, you teach again, and then you get the re-feedback. So it goes on and on until you have mastered the skill. Clear? So that's all for today. I hope you all have enjoyed the class, and if you have any problem, you can always ask, and don't hesitate. Thank you so much. Stay fine.